You ever feel like you're drowning, even when you're standing on dry land? It's 3 a.m. The house is dead silent. You're sitting at your kitchen table, staring at a stack of unpaid bills, a rejection letter, or maybe just an empty chair where someone used to be. Your heart is racing, palms are sweating, and your mind starts whispering the worst-case scenarios. This is what silent anxiety actually looks like. You ask yourself, what if I lose everything? What if I'm not enough? What if this is it? We all know this feeling. It's like a storm raging inside while the world outside is asleep. But what if I told you the storm isn't happening to you, it's coming from you? Let's figure out how to actually find some inner peace in all that noise. Let me take you to a quiet little town in Oregon. On the edge of town, there was this old Victorian house with peeling paint and a wraparound porch. An elderly woman named Martha lived there. Now, Martha wasn't rich. No fancy car, no big business. She lost her husband decades ago and lived on a tiny pension. But if you walked past her porch, you'd notice something weird. You'd see peace. Just absolute, unshakable peace. She had this positive mindset that most people just don't have. One rainy afternoon, a young guy named David pulled up. David was a stockbroker from the city. Well, used to be. The market crashed, his money vanished overnight, and the stress was eating him alive. He looked like he hadn't slept in weeks, totally crushed by the fear of failure. He was back in his hometown to sell his parents' old place because he was desperate for cash. He saw Martha on her porch, just watching the rain with a smile. David walked up, soaked and shaking with panic. He asked her, "How can you sit there smiling? Don't you know the economy is collapsing? People are losing jobs. Everything is falling apart. Aren't you scared?" Martha looked at him with bright, sharp eyes. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she asked him a question about perspective that changed everything for him. She said, "David, imagine two guys sitting in a dark room. One guy believes there's a monster in the corner waiting to eat him. The other guy believes the corner is empty. Both guys are in the same dark room. But tell me, which one is sweating? Which one is terrified? Which one is hurting?" David blinked, confused. "The one that thinks there's a monster, obviously." "Exactly," Martha said softly. "The monster isn't in the room, David. The monster is in the belief. That's how your mind messes with you." David sat on the steps, defeated. He admitted everything. "But my problems are real, Martha. My debt is real. My failure is real. How can I just think them away?" Martha leaned in and told him a story about mental strength. "Years ago," she started, "there was a man thrown into a prison cell. Small, dark, freezing. For the first week, he cried and cursed his luck. He thought about everything he lost, his freedom, his family, his dignity. He got weak, sick, and almost died from sadness. But one morning, a single ray of sunlight came through a crack in the wall and hit the dusty floor. Instead of staring at the dark, he focused entirely on that one circle of light. He watched the dust dancing in it. He felt a tiny bit of warmth. He started imagining that light was a message, a promise that the sun was still out there. Every day he waited for it. He stopped thinking about the walls and started thinking about the sun. He exercised in his cell. He wrote stories in his head. He became stronger and happier than the guards watching him. He figured out the real power of the mind." Martha looked right into David's soul. "You're running movies in your head of a future that hasn't happened yet. You're mourning a life you haven't lost yet. You're the guy in the dark room inventing monsters. What if, just for today, you stopped prepping for the disaster and started manifesting a win instead?"
David was skeptical. Sounded too simple, but he had no other choice. He decided to try it, not because he believed it, but because he was just exhausted from being scared. The next morning, David woke up. The anxiety was still there, but instead of spiraling, he remembered the circle of light. He forced himself to say, "I can do this. I'll find a way." He didn't check the market numbers that day. Instead, he called old clients, not to beg for money, but just to check on them. He walked with his head up. He smiled at the cashier. He acted as if everything was going to be okay. He started to change his reality from the inside out. And then things shifted. It wasn't magic, it was mechanics. Because David wasn't giving off fear vibes, people wanted to talk to him. Because he was calm, his head was clear enough to spot an opportunity he would have missed in a panic. A small consulting gig came up, then another. It wasn't the millions he lost, but it was a start. Weeks later, David went back to Martha's porch. He looked different. The worry lines were gone. "Did the economy get better?" Martha asked. No, David smiled, but I did. See, we usually think we need our circumstances to change so we can feel better. But the truth, the one Martha knew, is that we have to feel better so our circumstances can change. Your mind builds your reality. If you build a house of fear, you're going to live in a nightmare. If you build a house of hope, even a prison cell can feel like a palace. That's the secret to personal growth. So I'm asking you the same thing Martha asked David. What are you building in the dark room of your mind right now? Are you feeding the monster, or are you looking for the light? The choice to change your mindset, my friend, has always been yours.